Listen to Kovai Vani. Enjoy the podcast by our enthusiastic young residents. CovaiCare is the best place to retire.
I have before me an active ramrod straight 81-year-old with the unmistakable aura of an army man. Colonel Ramachandran was also the GM at NASCOM and was actively involved in promoting the growth of Indian software industry till 2008. He began his career after his BE in telecommunications when he joined the army under the university entry scheme. Passing out of the Indian Military Academy, he was commissioned in the Corps of Signals and was later instructor at the Military College of Telecommunication Engineering in Mao. His dedicated service has taken him to places such as Srinagar, Udhampur, Army Headquarters, New Delhi, and many more, including participation in the Bangladesh War. He was also nominated to attend MTech at IISc Bangalore. Now settled in a retirement complex, his activities, apart from his passion for gardening, includes keeping himself in shape and licking other senior citizens into shape with his fitness sessions. He now reveals the emotions, the hardship, the total dedication and discipline, the courage and humor in uniform. Welcome, Colonel Ramachandran.
Thank you, Mala.
First of all, to begin with, I would like to ask you, what do you remember about your very first day as an army officer?
Very interesting question, Mala. When I joined the unit that was in Delhi, that known as Special Signal Regiment, the CO was a very, very strict man, and he asked me and go and report to the Subedar Major of the unit. His aim was I should know the men first and as intimately as possible. So I went and met the Subedar Major, who introduced me to all the JCO Junior Commissioned Officers, and thereafter I was taken for tea with the officers at about 10:30, when the officers generally have tea together. There I was told by the CO, then Brigadier E.A. Ramados, that I have to lead a route march and carry out a testing of the range of a newly introduced equipment and go from Delhi cantonment as far as Manesa. We were to start our march at about 5 o'clock, and we wanted to see that the communication range gets affected at night. So there I was, prepared for a 40-kilometer march, and we went to Manesa, and where we found that the range was becoming a little more out of the expected range, and the signal strength was falling. The Subedar Major said, "Sir, we now have rest and let's have tea." And there I had the first introduction of tea with rum. And the first sip I took and it hit me, and I said, "Subedar Major Sahab, ये क्या किया आपने? ये साहब इधर का ये तरीका ही ऐसा है, या आप इसमें हो जाएंगे, ठीक हो जाएंगे." And there I came back, and of course I was groggy, all right, but that was my first
introduction.
That's
right. And what were the reasons that you joined the army? I mean, how did you choose your branch of service? I mean,
in 1957, after we had finished matriculation, my brother and myself, I have a twin brother, both of us appeared for the Joint Services Entrance Examination for NDA, and both of us were selected in the written examination. Pretty soon we got our letter for interview, and I said I am not going for the interview, and my brother said I'll go for the interview. He went and he was selected. I then continued with my studies and went to engineering college, and in 1963, under the university entry scheme, a team came to select students in the final year of the college, and there I was selected.
I see.
And from there I was asked to go to Indian Military Academy for further training.
Mm-hmm.
So this is slightly different from the intake from NDA, which is generally a preferred route to go and join the army.
Right, right.
In early 50s, National Defence Academy was set up in Pune. And we were in Pune doing our schooling. And we used to find cadets from National Defence Academy visiting Pune cantonment, very smart muftis with a haircut and a hat. And we were pretty impressed by their turnover.
Mm.
After that, I had few opportunities to play tennis with services players. And that impressed me quite a lot, because they used to come and practice sparkling white shorts and whites, and that was quite impressive. Added to this was my uncle was in the Navy, who was a Rear Admiral, and my brother-in-law was in the Air Force, who was Air Vice Marshal. So it is not surprising that they impressed me quite a lot, and Army was considered very, very actively by me as a profession.
And how did you imagine military life before you joined? And did it change? Did your perceptions change afterwards?
Since my relatives were in the Army, my brother had joined NDA, I was pretty confident what the life in Army would be like, what would be the protocols that would be followed. And I didn't find myself in any kind of trouble settling down in the Army. The only thing that I found was most of the people were rather reluctant to speak out what they felt was right. And I found it quite amusing and surprising, because I thought this was a place where everybody could express themselves freely. But that was not so. In many cases, of course, you could be right, but in many cases, I found that people didn't have the courage to speak up what they felt right, and that impression I still carry. Maybe over the period that ethos has changed. I am not sure.
So usually they say yours not to question why.
Ours is but to do and die.
Right. Can you describe a funny moment in your first year?
First year, yes. Yes, there were a couple of funny moments, and I was doing the commando course where we are supposed to, there is a water tank, huge swimming pool kind of thing with towers on either side connected by a 1 foot wide ramp, and that is about 20 feet above the ground. And you have to put on your full gear, battle gear, and go to the top and walk from one end to the other. To make you uncomfortable, they will be shaking the tower a little, and life becomes very it is difficult. And after you go to the center, you have to say, Commando Ramachandran jumps, and we have to jump down into the pool. So there was a ustad who the person who teaches us. He went on top of the thing. I say karna hai, and he was right in the middle of it when I don't know, he slipped and we fell down. Very, very rarely it happens. We all burst into laughter. But that was taken very seriously by officers, and they said, "Hey, why are you laughing? Your comrade has fallen down and you are laughing." That was a great lesson for us. I said, yes, that's wrong. We did go for a 20-kilometer route march after that for, smiling and when your own comrade falls down. But that was a message very well driven home.
Yeah, that's true.
And of course, there was another incident when we were in a mess with my company commander and few other friends and having drinks, when the company commander's wife rang him up and said, "Hey, what are you doing? Why don't you come home? Why haven't you come home?" He said, "Oh, we are in a meeting and we'll be there very soon." But our drinking went on and there were a couple of calls. And after about half an hour and 1 hour, we found a group of ladies coming in, and lo and behold, there was this officer's wife, and she said, "Hey, this is your meeting going on, huh?"
Okay. It'd be good to know how he dealt with it. And what about adapting to the life? I mean, how do you remember adapting to the military life?
I adapted to the military life quite easily. I did not find it very difficult at all. I was very fond of getting up early, games. The only thing I found, since I had not undergone any training in physical training or otherwise in the college, whereas all the other students are coming from NDA, or they are all doing this day and night, and that physical part, I found a little tough. That was initially for about a year or so, but thereafter, for example, in cross-country running, I took the lead and I used to stand first in the run. And because I took up to tennis also very seriously, and I was selected to play for represent services. That was good. And because of these two activities, people said, "Hey, he's a smart guy," or whatever it is, impression I had made, and I found my life pretty easy thereafter.
Okay. But being in the army, and also you've been in Bangladesh war, must have been quite a traumatic time. I mean, you must have seen some battle action and must have left some impact on you, which I don't know if you have it even now.
Yes, indeed. I did participate in the war, but even though Corps of Signals is a fighting arm, we are not along with the infantry or the artillery troop which goes ahead. We are a little behind with the formation headquarters. But even then, for example, at a place called Jesso, after the initial run over by the Indian Army, I was following up to set up rearward communication, and the whole thing was very eerie with dead bodies all around and ghost town. Nobody's venturing out of the place. And when you see, that was the first time I had seen dead bodies in numbers, large numbers. Thereafter, we went on beyond that to a place called up to Khulna, and it was sad. It was sad to see that people could be so ruthless to kill, innocent civilians, or perhaps there may be, Pakistani armies too, officers or men also perhaps in civilian uniform. I don't know, but it was a traumatic experience. It had a lasting impression on me. What is life all about? Yes,
it was difficult.
Yes. In fact, many times I even now I get dreams of the war, and I get up with a start,
Yeah.
After the war, it was maybe more often, but,
But
now
it's
very
still-
rarely. But it's still, even, which is surprising. People say that residual stress should not last such a long period, but at times maybe once in 6 months or so, I do get bad dreams relating to war.
Okay. That's, I think, something that most men have to deal with.
That's
and
right,
and
that's
women
right,
now that,
that's
yeah.
right.
And how did you stay in touch with your family and friends? I mean, there must have been.
One of the biggest advantages of joining the Corps of Signals is we have the communication
Yes,
at
at
our
your fingertips.
fingertips. Even senior officers, even the corps commander, divisional commanders, they all used to say, hey, हमारे बीबी का कॉल लगा दो, रामचंद्रन इधर आ जाओ, मैं हमारे बीबी का कॉल लगा दो. And I was OC one company. That means, all the communications were with me. So I used to say, yes, certainly, kar lijiye. But I could understand, how the amount of stress and the feeling there. I could find the happiness in their face when they had spoken with their spouses. And
Children.
that was fun. That
yeah.
was really very satisfying. And
Right.
so for a change, I was a god for them.
And how was it, how did you feel coming back from the combat, back home?
It is an indescribable feeling. I don't know how to describe that. It is one, yes, perhaps we do feel elated that we are back from the horrible war. But again, you find terrible void, in the sense too much of silence, we were busy there almost 24 hours a day, and suddenly it is very, very quiet and
Peaceful.
normal life. You find, hey, what is this? So what do I do now? And so it is a mixed feeling, but it is certainly elated. But I really can't describe how, unless somebody goes through that.
Right.
Yes.
After being in the middle of so much of
That's
tension.
right, because
and-
you have
Yeah.
seen people wailing, dying, crying, in pain, in agony, and then you are rushing, you are remorseless, you couldn't care what the hell is happening, and so suddenly you come home and you find love, affection,
Peace,
sympathy, empathy.
total peace, yeah.
Yes, and it's an indescribable feeling altogether.
Yeah. And was there anything you really missed about civilian life after joining the army?
Frankly, I didn't miss anything much. But yes, in army, in civilian life, you are there, you can do whatever you feel like. You have only one boss, and you don't have to worry. Whereas here, 24/7, you are under your work, responsibility. And not only that, we are bound by something known as Army Act, and more than that, something known as officer-like qualities. You are expected. Certain things are just no. For example, if lady comes, you are supposed to stand up. If we are going for lunch, ladies are always first. You are not supposed to start eating before the guest starts eating. Evening time, you can't go in a half shirt, half sleeve shirt. Very, very good things, and the civilians will certainly find it rather strange.
But basically, these are all good behavior and good manners.
Absolutely.
I mean, the civilian should also follow it. I don't see anything.
That's
the
what
mark
I
of a
personally
gentleman.
feel. Yes, absolutely. But I think, at least during my times, they used to say, "Hey, kya tum Britisher jaisa kar raha hai? Kya hai ye style?" But it is not so. They are all good habits. They are good habits to inculcate. Why not respect a lady?
Yeah.
Why not give the guest his due honor by asking him to help himself first, and then you start eating. But there are many other protocols which we follow, and that's a big difference between civilian life and Indian life. They will, again, that we have many facilities that are available in the army, and people misunderstand about that. Like we have a canteen facility, and we have, they feel we get liquor free. It is not so. Everything we pay a price. A canteen facility, yes, we get some discounts, but we carry a huge responsibility also. But these are all misconceptions which.
Yeah. And is there someone whom you served with who made you very much remember or made an impact?
I do very fondly recall my association with Lieutenant General Krishnaswamy Balaram. He was my neighbor when I was instructor at Mau, and absolutely man of impeccable integrity, fantastic bearing in the sense ramrod straight, and terrific posture. Protocol means protocols, rules means rules, but full of empathy in spite of that. Knowledgeably, in so far as his knowledge was concerned, I think during that time he was the only officer who had done MTech in UK and Staff College in India. One of the very, very few officers who have achieved, who were good technically as well as tactically, general staff duties. Rare combination, and somehow I like to emulate him to the extent possible, and he was also very fond of me, and especially my children Muma and Priya.
Okay. And now that you've served so long, and after retirement, do you have any advice that you would give to soldiers on life and after retirement? Life after retirement.
Life after retirement, one must remember that in army you are well taken care of. You are paid well. You are constant. You are busy 24/7. Some activity, other sports, other activities, professional activities. One must start preparing for retirement well in advance, and perhaps start saving financially also. You could also start thinking on what after my retirement, am I going to take up a job or not? If not, if I don't take a job, what are the pitfalls? If I take the job, what are the... So one serious consideration needs to be given post-op retirement activities. If you come out without any activities, I do know officers who have come out of the army and out in the blue and running from pillar to post for a job, or how to manage their financial situations. So I think these need to be given very, very serious considerations. Social life, for example, armies, there is no dearth of social life. Some activity or other going on. How are you going to adjust to the social life when you are fairly new to the whole place? That's also an issue that you need to consider beforehand.
And besides, one aspect I've always thought of is that you all in the army have orderlies who do all the work for you, polishing your shoes, everything is done for you. You can't expect that in a civilian life. You have to do everything yourself, unless you have very good servants. But those servants will not do these things for you.
You are absolutely right, Mala. There again, I would tell you, General Balaram was the one who told me, hey, why are you using the orderly? I do my own polishing, and I started doing on my polishing. Not only that, thereafter, to whichever unit I went on posting, I refused to have an orderly with us. I said, I do not need my orderly. I can take care of my dress. I can take care of my polishing of my shoes. I will not make use of the orderlies for any purpose other than what they are supposed to do. In fact, I would discourage anybody using orderlies.
Okay. And sometimes civilians, as you mentioned earlier, have a false impression of the army. And one of them is they think that because drink is available, liquor is available, army, military, they're all used to drinking a lot.
Again, wrong perception. I would say 5% of the people in the army love their drinks, which is rather surprising. But it is generalized, which is not correct. And even though they drink in moderation. We are told time and again about liquor and its bad effects, how it can affect your financial positions, and how it is not good for health. And therefore, there is a lot of awareness that has now been generated, and I find that what they say is incorrect. And even after retirement, I have seen that people from the army know their limit. Yes, this far and no further. They stop it. It's a wrong notion, unfortunately, that people from the army, because they get very cheap liquor, they are all drunkards. It's not so at all.
Right. And finally, one thing I'm always wondered is, like if you work, it depends on your career. Each one develops a certain sort of habits during that time. And some we carry on into the rest of our lives, some we try to change. So what are some habits that you sort of learned got used to in the army and which you want to leave, or some habits that you want to continue?
Some of the habits is that politeness. I would like to continue with that. I learned it. I tried to be as polite as possible. I like very pakka haircut, army style haircut. I would like to. These days I am not able to do it because of COVID. But I because of COVID, I give haircut to my brother, and my brother gives haircut to me. But we have close army haircuts. Then other thing which I enjoy is getting up early, and here also I find myself getting up early as a very, very good habit. It gives me a lot of time to at my disposal.
Right.
These are some of the things I would certainly like to continue with. The bad things, I don't think Army taught me anything bad things.
Okay.
Yes.
Colonel, I find that in Indian movies, many of whether Bollywood, Collywood, Tollywood, whatever it is, they tend to, have a lot of mistakes in whether they be police stations or medical, let's say hospitals, army, and all that. So, which movies did you find, or any movie at all, that had a depiction of the army in a realistic way?
Most of the pictures depict the army life generally in a correct way. There are some glaring mistakes, all right, insofar as the medals are concerned, the battle honors are concerned, or the dress is concerned. But amongst the pictures, two stand out. And first is Hum Dono.
Okay.
And the second is Sher Shah. Hum Dono I liked because, it reflects the right feelings of a person who is away from his family, his wife and fiancé. And I found it, and the role played by Devanand as the army officer and his batman, and they were generally to the point and hardly any, I wouldn't say there were any blemishes. Other one is the Sher Shah. Sher Shah was a fast movie, and since it was fast moving, even though there were some errors, they were overlooked. But again, that was a very well-made movie, and the battle scenarios were quite to the point and quite relevant, I found.
Can you remember a specific scene in any movie that resonated with you and reflected your feelings, your very real emotions exactly?
No, I remember that song, Abhi Na Jao Chhod Ke. And I remember because when we come on leave and when we go back, that is what exactly we feel like. We come, annual leaves are very sparse and in between, but with short leaves, when you come and you're meeting your 5 children and going back, yes, and especially if you're newly married, I think it's a very, very it's valid point. Yes, at least I found so.
Thank you, Colonel Ramachandran, for this remarkable insight into Army life. It was really so fascinating, and great having you with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you and stay tuned.